Hi there, Prairie here. So I'm in my garden shed today. Um, you may have seen in one of my most recent videos, we had our first hard frost just a few days ago, and then we had snow. So it's been a weather-filled last few days here. And so I quickly gathered up, I still had dahlias and crocosmia and anemones and cannas and all sorts of frost tender plants growing outside. And so I quickly gathered up what I could for the pots and took most of the foliage and that off and just brought them in my shed, hoping that that would protect them enough to get them through a few days, because now we're going to be into some nicer weather for a few days again now here, just touching around the freezing mark at night and getting up into the teens Celsius during the day. So what I'm hoping to do today is get through some of these. I think it'll probably be mostly the Crocosmia and maybe the Acidenthera that I get through today, and just taking them. I've already taken some of the Crocosmia out of pots here. I set them just in these tins just to dry out a little bit. So I have some Crocosmia here, just kind of drying out a little bit, and the Acidenthera, because the pot these guys were in was pretty wet, and I was having trouble seeing their roots in that. But I took a little bit of video. I want to try and get these settled into some bags. I have mesh bags, like what you might get bulbs or onions in, and this one here has my buttercup or ranunculus in. Now this was in my garage where it's a little bit warmer than out here, because these are quite tender. I just brought it out here. It was just happened to be in the bucket with the other things. So what I'll be doing with these is just putting the anemones will go the same as the ranunculus here. So they'll be just packed in the bag so that they're not touching one another, with some vermiculite in between them. And then the Crocosmia and the Acidenthera don't need to have the vermiculite. They're okay to get fairly dry, I find. So they'll just go into a bag, and then they'll all have a label put on them, on the bag, just so I know what they are, and they'll just get hung in a cool place for storage over the winter. So I'm hoping to get through that today. I also have several pots of dahlias in here that I need to deal with. I still have dahlias out in the ground. Hopefully they're all still okay. But I just need to kind of get to this. So I thought I'd kind of bring you along. I'm not sure how great this video is going to turn out for you, but I'll kind of try and show you what I'm doing. So like I said, I want to get these things into these mesh bags. So I have this one here. I have another, just a whole bag full of them right here, just varying sizes and whatnot. So hopefully I have enough bags. I have a little bit of vermiculite. That should be enough to do the anemones. There's a twist tie in here. And then I have tags. Most of the bulbs should have a label with them from when I planted them. I like to stick the label in there so I don't forget what variety is in that pot, especially with things like bulbs, things that I want to save. But I brought out some extras just in case I don't have, and I brought out a marker. These tags, like this style here, I really like these for things that I'm going to be saving from year to year because they have this hole in them. I can stick a wire, a twist tie through, and attach it right, either in the case of dahlias, I just poke a piece of wire right through the stem of the dahlia. And with things like this, I can do like I did with the ranunculus and just wrap it around the bag so I know what I'm dealing with. So that works really well. Okay, so I'd like to start with the ranunculus. I'm hoping that I can see better what I'm doing with them now. That looks like Crocosmia that snuck in with the ranunculus. So they do have a little, or sorry, not the ranunculus, the anemone. So they do have their little tag with them. So I've never saved these before. I'm just going to try and take back as much extra matter as I can. They were like little stones when I opened the package. So this looks like it's one big piece that's you know, tried to multiply here. So I'm just going to cut back as much greenery as I can off of it. Try to get some of these extra roots off. Then I'll let you have a better look at it. So when you purchase these, they're quite dry and you need to soak them before you plant them. So they'll be okay to dry out pretty good. Oops. Okay. So what I'm going to do here, so hopefully you can see this. So this here is where the stems were growing out. There's another part there, I think. I may have cut too deep into that there. And then this is the main corm or tuber. I'm not sure what they are. You kind of see it there. But I think these little offshoots here may be where it was trying to develop new and multiply. And there was this little piece here that came off. So I think what I'm actually going to do with these for now is maybe just put them in the mesh bag so they can dry out really well. And just kind of lay it out somewhere inside. I'll cut them all back like this, and then I'll come along later once they're more dried out and put the vermiculite in, because they were really dry when I got them with just a little bit of wood shavings, and they feel quite moist right now, so I think that, I don't know, I'm just not sure. I think they should be drier than this. So I think for now I'll just put them in here, and once I have all the greenery off, that should help them to dry out a little bit, and then I can always come back later on and pack them away properly. But I think just because I had to kind of quickly, they were still growing, you know, they didn't get really even blackened that much by frost. They've been sitting here, well actually they were in my garage. I moved these into my garage like this for a few days, and I was hoping that would have had them die back a bit more, but I think they need a bit more time before they get completely packed up. So I'm just going to go through these. Like I said, take off the extras that I can. Now I know generally with bulbs and things you want to leave the greenery to die back completely to feed the bulb or the corm, but I feel like with this much damp and this much cool around now, I think that's just looking for a disease. So I am going to be just cutting it off. And that's what I wound up doing a lot of years with my dahlias and my cannas, is cutting the greenery off, you know, when they're kind of at this point where they've had some frost, but they're not completely died back. Same with Acidenthera and that. So I think they'll be okay. Just maybe won't be as much energy that goes back into the bulb, but so yeah, that's going to be my game plan, and we'll see in the spring if I made the right choice on this, I guess. But I just think there's just too much moisture here to continue leaving them laying like this. They're going to wind up rotting. It's interesting because they kind of have growing points from all around, you know, a large portion. Should have sharpened my secateurs. So I think, you know, after they've dried a bit, some of this will just kind of probably pull off more easily, kind of like a begonia. So I guess I'm going to try and kind of treat them more like my begonias, where I would cut back that top growth to a point and then let it dry out the rest of the way, and then come back and pull off anything that'll just come off easily, and store the rest. Might be able to see better what these corms look like. Like, they really do kind of just look like almost like a rock or something when they're dried out. And they're really hard. You know, you wouldn't think that would grow such a beautiful flower. You can see here how they grow just from like almost every direction. Has a growing point coming out all over the place. So there's the roots. Some are going down. Some seem to be coming out the top. So there, that's the last one. So here they are. That's what I wind up with. I can't even remember how many I planted, like maybe a dozen? This one's definitely more than one. Once they dry out a bit, hopefully I can see where they separate. It looks like if I just gave it a gentle twist, it would probably come apart here. They're all intertwined. Yeah, so if I don't separate it once they're dried out a bit, then it'll definitely come apart in the spring. As you can see, it just wants to the two pieces twist there, and there's definite growth points on this side, and then over here, lots of growth points. There might even be 3 in here. So I think once they dry out, and I can see better what's going on in there, I think this will all probably just tease apart. I'll have at least 2. I'm guessing this one will be the same way. So I don't know, this one's pretty small, and so is this one here. So I don't know if they'll resprout or not next year. But I've 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11 good size that several of them I think will break into smaller pieces for next year. But like I said, I just think they need to dry out a bit first. And hopefully they haven't just gotten too cold that they're mushy and not going to. But like I said, I took these in my garage, so I think they should be okay. I think they're just soft from growing. So I'm going to put those in the bag with the tag just like this for now. They have lots of air circulation. And I'll actually probably kind of take them inside and lay them out a bit in the garage where it's cooler but not freezing. And then they can kind of air out a little. So that'll be those. And here's some Crocosmia. Now these might be in the same situation. So let's see if I have the tag. I think these are Emily Mackenzie. No, these are Sunglow. So I have some that are separated already. So if you have never seen one, that's a Crocosmia bulb. So right there is the growing tip actually on that one. It's already sprouted. Looks like probably where the leaves pulled off. Sometimes they'll just pull away from the bulb and then you'll have that little tip there. Then here's some roots. And here's another one with a better kind of papery covering on it. So that's what they look like. And they are fine to just dry out. I'll try and get rid of as much of this kind of extra roots and stems or anything as I can. and then they'll just go in a mesh bag just like this, and they can be against each other and that, and I've never had trouble with these types of bulbs being stored that way, just in a cool spot where it doesn't freeze. So just go right in. And here, see if I can show you. They will multiply, so hopefully you can see that. That's a new corm that's coming off of this one. They're attached at the bottom there. And it will eventually grow into a large corm that will produce flowers. So they can come apart like this. You can see it has its own root system. Next year it'll probably just grow leaves. And then the year after that, or the next year, it'll have a flowering stalk. They start out just small little babies like that. And then they'll get into a real flowering plant for you in the coming years. So here's a larger offshoot that you can see. So there's the main corm that was used, and then this would be the offshoot or the cormel that's coming, and this one's probably a few years old, or it just grew really well. There's a little bit of dirt between them, but it'll just twist very gently and come off with its own root system, and these will both be good to plant next year. So I'm just going to continue to go through and find all of these. And I think I might have some more Sunglow. I'm not sure. I have a couple different kinds, so I'll store the different varieties separately, but if I have more Sunglow, then they'll go in this bag as well. And the other variety I have is Emily Mackenzie, so it'll get its own bag, so that I have them separated because they look exactly the same. At this point, it's just their flowers that are different. So I'm just going to continue going through and cleaning these out. And these multiply quite prolifically. So see, the stems will just pop off like that. If they don't, you can cut them up a little bit higher, but they'll usually just pull with a gentle tug. But they multiply quite well, so I probably will wind up with 2 to 3 or even more corms than I started with this spring. So here's a really small one. So this again probably wouldn't flower this year. It probably didn't have a flower on it, and it probably won't flower next year, but then it'll get larger and flower. So you don't need to see me just doing this for dozens and dozens of these, but I'll bring you back when I have it done and show you what I've gotten done. Okay, so I got about, I think I have nearly a dozen of the Emily Mackenzie Crocosmia. There's a leaf in there. So I'm going to just tie these off and label them. And I had purchased more of these that I planted in the spring, but I think some of them went into pots that I gave away as gifts. But that's a great thing to do that with, because I'm still probably going to wind up with more than I started with right now. Like, I think I only had a dozen or so to begin with, and that's what I have now, and I already gave some away. So these are a great plant for that. And then here's the Sunglow. So again, like, both of them started off with just small bags, this size or smaller. I think I had 2 bags of the Sun Glow to start, one of the Emily Mackenzie, and you can see, you know, you get quite a few. They really multiply, like 2 or 3 more each year. These, they need to be lifted in my climate, which is Zone 3, Saskatchewan, Canada. I believe from Zone 6 or 7, you wouldn't need to. But that's the same with, I'm going to move on to the Acidenthera, and they're the same thing, so they need to be lifted. So I need to get those are underneath me here. So I've dug out quite a few of the Acidenthera. They're just sitting in that pot right there to dry out. And then there's another pot you can't quite see, and they're still planted in that one there. And I think that's all that I have. I don't think I have any stashed in the garage right now, but they're going to go the exact same way as I just did the Crocosmia. So they have a very similar structure, very much like a gladiolus. So you have that little corm, and then the leaf stalk, which will just pop off, or I may have to cut it. Sometimes these are a little bit thicker and they need to be cut. And then the root structure, and quite often they will have little babies off the bottoms as well. You can see one. Hopefully you can see that there. Right there, that'll be a smaller cormel coming there. So I'll be able to separate those out. Same thing, the very small ones will just grow leaves next year. And then probably the following year I'll get a flower out of them. Here's another little one just fell off out of the roots. So I'm going to do these the exact same way, and I'll show you when they're done. The Acidenthera reproduce so prolifically that I don't even usually bother to save. I don't worry about these little guys that fall off of them. If they do, you know, if I get them, I get them. If I don't worry about it. I wanted to show you just how prolifically these Acidenthera multiply. So if you can see all those little bumps along there, there. There's more over here, oops. And if I peeled back the layers of skin, like you can feel like there's one there, there's one there, there's some there. That's all new bulbs starting. And that's not atypical. Like here's another one. You pull the roots out of the way and you can just see lots more coming quite easily without even really looking too hard. So if you don't want to go to the trouble of saving them, they're quite cheap. You usually get them in packages of like 100. And they're easy to buy in the spring. I find in my area readily available. And you know, they multiply so quickly that I have several planted out in the ground, but I'm not even going to bother to lift those, because I will have as many as I started with, plus probably 2 or 3 times that amount, just out of these few that were in pots, that I don't need to bother going and digging around in the soil and lifting the ones that I planted in the ground. In my climate, they won't come back. Planted in the ground, but in warmer climates they might come back for you, and I don't know, maybe in warmer climates they have to be lifted and divided often, because they do multiply so quickly. But here, pretty cheap investment for what I find to be a really beautiful, worthwhile flower and bulb or corm. But super easy to save. You don't even need, I mean, you just need like old pantyhose or old stockings or something, you know, something breathable to store them in. You can just hang them up from the rafters of your basement. They don't even need like super special temperatures, you know, just not freezing, and, you know, something below like 20 Celsius basically. and they'll store quite happily for you. They can get dry, you don't have to worry about how moist they are. So this is an easy, super easy beginner bulb for anyone looking for something like that. Okay, so there's my bag of Acidenthera. Some of them were pretty damp. The ones that were still potted up are pretty damp yet, but in a bag like this, they're going to get a lot of air circulation. So again, I'll just make sure they're hanging, and you know they're going to get the air circulation that they need. I have my tag here, so I can tag these up. And I just realized I still have gladiolas in the ground outside, so I don't have time today. I have to get in and get some other things taken care of, but that'll be on my list to get those dug up, and they'll be stored this exact same way as the Acidenthera and the Crocosmia, just in a mesh bag, like I said, or nylon stocking, whatever you have, just something with air circulation. And I just hang them up somewhere cool that just doesn't freeze but doesn't get basically above 20 degrees Celsius, and they seem to do just fine like that. So that's what I'll be doing with those. Again, I have my ranunculus that I did the other day. I think I have a video on that. And then my anemone, I'll be coming back in. They're just a little bit damp, so I want to make sure that they dry out a little bit more to make sure there's no mold or fungus or anything that starts growing on them. See if I get some more of the foliage and that pulled off once they're dried a bit more. And then I'll come in with some vermiculite and just make sure they're separated by that. And do them up the same as I did the ranunculus there. So I got quite a bit done here in this hour or so here. So I'm happy with that. I'm going to slowly just keep plugging away on these next few warm days and get this stuff done. Like I said, I still have my dahlias to do, so there'll probably be a video on that. I have cannas that still need to get stored away and dug up. I have dahlias that need to get dug up. The temperatures we're getting at night right now, those should all be fine in the ground. They should be insulated enough in the ground. Like I said, I pulled the pots in here mostly because it was raining and then snowing, and so I didn't want them to get too wet and cold in the pots. And bringing them in the shed just gives them just a little bit more insulation from the cold weather. But yeah, so there's going to be probably a few videos coming up in the next little bit here of me, you know, just clearing up my tender bulbs and getting them put away for the winter. So hopefully you found this information interesting to you. Hopefully it helped you in some way. If you know someone else that you think could benefit from this, then please share this video with them. Hit the thumbs up, hit the subscribe if you're not subscribed, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye.